Hello friends, welcome back to VOWIAS. Welcome to the mains test series discussion, and this is part 1 of the 4th test. Hope you have seen the other 3 tests. If you have any query, do leave in the comment box. If you want to give us any suggestion, even that also you can leave in the comment box or get back to us via Telegram as well. So this is the summary document of the 4th test, and this is the part 1 where we will discuss from question number 1 to question number 5. And let's look at the question number 1. So question number 1 is on the functions of money. See, these kind of static questions, every year you will find at least 2 of them in the mains paper. If you just go through the previous year questions, static questions definitely will come. Maybe they will add some current element also to it. So that's why having a grip over the static concepts is very important. So this revision will definitely help you in that. So first question is on the functions of money. So functions of money, if you see, money is that recognized medium of exchange for all the transactions in a country. So here the definition, if you see the money definition, it is the recognized medium of exchange used for transactions for the purpose of transactional purpose in an economy. That is the usage of money. So this money has various functions. So what is the functions? First is it acts as intermediary between the buyer and seller. So all the goods and services, they can be expressed in this monetary unit. It can be used to store wealth for the future. So for wealth, for goods, for exchange of, that means to buy or purchase, to buy or sell any good. And also it is a standard of deferred payment. That means if the money is usable today to make purchases, it will be acceptable to make purchases even in the future. So to accumulate wealth, to purchase anything you want or to sell anything you want, and also all the goods and services, they can be monetarily seen in terms of this money. So that these are the functions of the money. So this money is the basic entity in, or it is something which is very basic in every country. This is very important. Now money has certain advantages, because normally earlier we used to follow this barter system where people used to exchange these goods, any goods in fact. After that, even sometimes if you see, people used copper coins, gold coins, and all of these things. But now we are using this liquid, or you can say this cash driven economies. That means we are using this paper as a unit of exchange. So what is the advantage of using this paper currency, that is money, over other types of assets? The first is that it is the most liquid form of assets. It can be readily exchanged for other type of assets like gold, land, bonds, and they may not be easily convertible to other commodities, plus they don't have universal acceptability as well. These are the most liquid form. Okay, because sometimes in barter system the other person does not want what you have, so it becomes very difficult. The transaction itself will be in jeopardy. So that's why money is something which is universally acceptable. It can be converted easily. If you see the land, gold, they are not easily convertible. That is the thing. And also money is something which will be acceptable by everyone, even though they don't have something to give you, or even though you don't have the item that the other person want, but still you can do the transaction with the other person, because the money will be accepted universally. It is acceptable to everyone at any time, as it's a legal tender. Example, in the barter system there used to be this double coincidence of wants. That means you should have what the other person want, and the other person should have what you want. So that is very important in barter system, but here that is not important. And another thing is that relatively it is more durable. That means its value do not dip, the value does not reduce over time. That is the main thing, because normally these perishable items, especially the food grains, the fruits, their value reduces only in this season, in the particular season they will have the value. After that, if
బ్లూ కలర్ లాస్ట్ టైం తెచ్చావు కదా, అదే చాలదేమో నీకు ఎక్సెస్ నాకు
if they spoil, they will not have any value. So they are perishable. Only for some time they will have their value. So this is not this will not happen with the money. The next is the money also can be conveniently carried from one place to another easily. So it's easy to store and carry. It's relatively stable than crypto, because crypto, if you see, the value reduces very fast and also the value increases very fast. So this volatility always is a trouble to the people. Next, the currency of a particular denomination, example 10, is uniform. So everywhere the 10 will have the same value, but in the barter system the assets value is not uniform. Rice value will be different in South India, rice value will be different in East, West and North. So that is the thing. Also this money, it is fungible, easily fungible. So what does fungible means? That means a 100 rupee note can be divided into 250 rupees notes, 10 rupees notes, or 520 rupees notes, something like that. But if you see, in barter system, the good or commodity cannot be divided that easily. For example, take an animal that is to be exchanged. That animal cannot be divided. They cannot divide leg and give, or they cannot divide a shoulder and give, so something like that. So that's why this money is very advantageous compared to other forms like crypto or in the barter system, or maybe any other currency like gold and all. Okay, so that's the thing. These are the advantages of using money. Next, second question is on the instruments of monetary policy. So monetary policy, what is monetary policy in the first place? So monetary policy is a policy of Reserve Bank of India, basically to control the inflation. That is the major goal of this monetary policy in general. So this also will be used to control, it will also be used to fuel the growth and all these things, right? So monetary policy is the policy of Reserve Bank of India. In simple words, you can just remember like that. And the monetary policy, if you see, in basic words, it is to control the money, and it uses various tools for this control. Generally, RBI will be using, or you can say RBI will be giving this monetary policy, and it will use tools like qualitative and quantitative. So now, what are qualitative tools for the money control? Qualitative means the money, where it is going. So quality wise, किसको कितना जा रहा है, how the money is used. So all of these things are taken care of. So there are various tools like the statutory or the legal reserve ratios, like the statutory liquidity ratio, the SLR, the CRR, the cash reserve ratio with the RBI. Next, the repo and reverse repo rate. So these are the rates with which RBI easily controls the loans to the banks. Next, open market operations. So open market operations means it is outright purchase and sale of the government securities for both injection as well as absorption of the liquidity. It will control the liquidity at large. Next, the market stabilization scheme. So the surplus liquidity is absorbed through the sale of short dated government securities and treasury bills. So this is the market stabilization scheme. Next, the quantitative tools. So these are the qualitative tools. Next, the quantitative tools. The quantitative tools are rationing of credit. That means RBI limits which sector should get, or RBI limits what is the loan that can be granted to particular sectors and commercial banks. And also the margins are changed, the loan margins and size are changed by RBI from time to time, depending on the market, depending on the need, depending on the international factors and all. It is used to encourage the credit supply for necessary and for the necessary things and avoid for unnecessary sectors. RBI, if you see, the only institution that can issue currency. So when the commercial banks need more funds, or when they need more funds for the growth or for the support and all, it is the RBI that will give them that funds. When they need more money for the liquidity, for temporary adjustments and all, RBI will be giving, because RBI is the banker of the banks. RBI is also the banker of the government, right? So under the RBI Act of 1934, RBI acts as banker and debt manager to the government as well as all the states except Sikkim. It is entrusted with the management of remittances, exchange and banking transactions in India, and provide the ways and means advances to the governments, right? So the monetary policy has two instruments, the qualitative tools and the quantitative tools. Qualitative tools, quality wise, इसको कितना जाना है, इसको कैसे use करना है, all these things are taken care of. The tools are the legal reserve ratios like SLR, CRR, the legal reserve ratios, the repo rate, reverse repo rate, the open market operations, the market stabilization schemes. Next, the quantity, the quantitative tools. Quantity, किसको कितना जाना है, rationing of credit, right? the priority sector lending is also controlled, right? Because किस sector को कितना जाना है, किसको कितना देना है, how much agriculture should get. So this quantity को भी manage करता है RBI. So these are the qualitative and quantitative tools. Next, let's move on to the next question, the third question. Third question is on the public debt. So public debt, if you see, it is the total liability of the government that has to be paid from the Consolidated Fund of India. As you all know, there are two funds, the Consolidated Fund and the Contingency Fund. So Contingency Fund is generally the fund which is there with the government of India for the temporary purpose. It is generally there at the disposal of the president, and for temporary mismatches or for any unforeseen incidents like maybe tsunamis, cyclones. For these things, generally the contingency fund is used. Else, everything is taken from the consolidated fund. All the budgetary allocations, everything, all the money that the government gets, it will flow into the consolidated fund of India, and also all the money that the government spends will come out from the consolidated fund of India. So this is the use of this consolidated fund. So the public debt, if the government takes any debt, that money will be serviced from this consolidated fund of India only. So public debt is the total liability of the government of India that have to be paid from this consolidated fund of India. Also, it includes the overall liabilities of the central and state government sources of public debt. Central government sources of public debt, if you see, the government securities, the G-Secs, the T-bills, that is the treasury bills, the external assistance, the short-term borrowings, and so on and so forth. So it includes, the sources are these things. So the liabilities include the debts of central and state government, and the sources of this public debt are the government securities, treasury bills, external assistance, and so on. Right. So if you see, the government of India debt, it increased from 51.8% in 2011-12 to 58.8% in 2020-21, which is a 14-year high. The increase in public debt is a matter of concern. So this increase in public debt, to a certain extent, yes, the COVID also has a reason. It also played a part in it for the increase of this public debt. But the increase of this public debt is always a concern. It is always a concern. Why? We will see that now. So the first point is, the borrowers built on government's debt without any additional interest payment. So not that it would add to interest payment. That means already there are a lot of borrowings on which the government is paying interest. So additional borrowing will increase the interest rate for the government. Government has to pay more. Next, when the interest rate rises, so the refinancing of this existing debt becomes expensive, because the interest rates will go up and down, and refinancing again will become difficult, and also there will be inflation in the market. So income has to go towards debt repayment and less towards the government services, much like that of it occurred in Europe. So for example, Greece. So there is a sovereign debt crisis. That means the government is not able to service the debt. There is this huge debt that has piled up. So the government has to pay the interest as well as the principal amount. So both principal and interest, it would prove to be a disaster eventually for the governments. So the debt always has to be under control, because generally when the debt is increasing, the debt serviceability will increase. So when the debt serviceability will increase, there will be less investments, because the government is spending most for the interest payments and all. So the expenditure on the capital will eventually decrease. Next, there will be increase in government spending or cut in taxes would increase the aggregate demand, leading to the demand pull inflation. So what does this mean is, so when the government takes this money from markets and all, the government will spend on the social sector scheme. So when the government would spend on the social sector scheme, what will happen is that people will have more money, and when the people have more money, they will be spending more. That means the inflation, the demand pull inflation will increase. Okay, and so because when the people have money, the demand in the market will increase. That means the inflation because of this demand will increase. Right, this is the thing. And also it leads to high risk premium in the interest rates, the reduction of private investments, contraction of GDP in long run. So just now we discussed the increase in this interest rate. It will lead to high risk. So this further, what will happen because of this is the private investments would reduce, because the private investors, they will always be careful, because if the government is in this kind of deep debt, then government will not be able to support these investments. Government will not be able to invest in any capital construction or anything. That means the building of roads or anything, it will not happen. So long run the GDP also will decrease because of all these things, right? So next one, the government also transfers the burden of consumption to the future generation. That means today if the government is taking the loan, so the repayment will be taking place over a long time. So that means this debt burden is being passed on to the future generations. Also, there is a rise in primary deficit and deterioration in the interest rate differential. So it will further fuel the skepticism of the debt sustainability. The wide fiscal deficit leaves little room to absorb adverse shocks. That means already the debts are too high. So if tomorrow if there's a crisis, that crisis can be of any reason, maybe because of the climate or because of the any biological attack or because of war or anything, then it becomes much more difficult for the government, because today we are living in a very uncertain world. So having that cushion is very, very important. Next, because of all these things, when there is less investment that is flowing, when there is less capital with the government, when there is high debt, then the credit rating of the country, it will fall. If the credit rating fall, then the investments will not be coming. The bonds value will be reduced, because there will be less people who want to purchase the bonds of the government, because they are very skeptic about the repayment capability of the governments. So that's why the credit ratings are very important, right? So these are the basic things. But sometimes, not always, if you see, sometimes even this debt is also important if the debt is used in the right way. So right way means the debt which is taken has to be invested in the capital resources. That means for the building of roads, for the building of metros, for the building of railways, for the building of ships. So if it is used like that, then this will reap dividends. So that's why the revenue deficit is always dangerous, but the capital deficit is good for the country, because if the money is taken and it is used for this infrastructure and all, the people will be getting the jobs and the economy will be improving overall. So debt, when it is used for unproductive uses, is always harmful. But if it is used for productive uses, if it is put into use for the productive things, then debt is very much good. Okay. Now let's move on to the next question, the fourth question, the national income accounting. So national income accounting, if you see, it is used to measure the economic activity in a nation as a whole. So the national income generally is calculated in terms of the GDP, GNP, NDP, NNP, and so on. So GDP, if you see, it is the total market value of all goods and services that are produced in a country, that means within a boundary, right? In India, the GDP, it is generally estimated by the Central Statistical Office, and the GDP estimation will take place by three methods. First is the value added method, next is the income method, the value added, income, and expenditure method. So these three are the methods. Now, what is the significance of this national accounting? Why we need this, the national accounting? The first thing is that it measures the growth of a nation. We will have accurate value about what is happening in the country. It compares the standard of living of different countries, and this will help us to see where we are standing, and this will also show us a path where we have to go and how we have to go. It reflects on the relative contribution of the potential of various sectors of the economy, which will be a guide for the business class of future generation. So it shows which sector is growing, which sector is not growing, so where people can invest and where people can take that benefit. It will show all of these things. And this national income accounting also assesses the distribution of income and resources in an economy. It identifies the specific economic achievement and failures, and it helps people in evaluating policies of the government. It shapes budgetary policies of the government, including the borrowing and tax policy, to neutralize the fluctuations of income and employment. So all of these things happen. Now, what are the factors affecting the GDP? What are the factors that affect the GDP of a country? So the factors include the location and availability of these natural resources like coal, iron, timber, etc. They affect the level of GDP, because if they are deep interior, then setting up of industries and all will become very difficult. So the location and how much they are available, they play a very important role. Next, the capital. So capital always impacts the GDP. So how much money is coming, how much money is invested, how they are invested, all of these things determine the GDP, because they determine the profitability and political stability. So capital also determines the GDP. Okay. Right. Next, the labor and entrepreneurship. So how much manpower is available, at what cost they are available, what are the innovations that are happening, what are the new companies that are coming. All of these things, they affect the GDP. All of these things affect the GDP. Because if new companies are coming, the GDP would increase. If the capital, or you can say if the labor is available at low cost, then the capital would increase. That means the amount of money which is invested would increase. This will lead to increase in the GDP of a country. There will be more development of new technologies. There will be more development of innovations. All these things will happen if there is entrepreneurship. So because of this, the GDP will increase, right? And also the development of technology we just discussed, and also through policy interventions, the government can provide favorable business atmosphere. So this also affects the GDP. Next, the stable economic and political system helps in appropriate allocation of resources. The social unrest discourages the investment and growth. So all of these things will impact the GDP at large, right? Next, the fifth question. The fifth question is on the gender budgeting. So definitely you will see every year question on budgeting will find its way, and indirectly or indirectly question will be coming. So here the question, if you see, it is on the gender budgeting. This is a very important question, because we have seen in the past that question comes from this area. So gender budgeting, you have to know the definition. So definition is that incorporating gender perspective at all levels of budgeting process, of all levels of the budgetary process, in fact, that is called as gender budgeting. So gender budgeting, if you see, the basic aim is to promote gender inclusive policies and give more weightage to the women centric policies also, because women are the marginalized sections. So women has to be given enough priority and all. So that's why this will play a role. So the gender budgeting, if you see, the gender budgeting is to promote the accountability and transparency in the fiscal planning. This is to increase the gender responsive participation in the budgetary process, example, by involving both men and women in the budget making. Also to advance gender equality and women rights. The government of India has introduced this, right? But the challenge remains. What are the challenges that remains? First is the quantum of gender budget is less than 1% of GDP. That means the gender specific schemes, that is women specific schemes, they are very less. Example, the gender budget of 0.7% of GDP over 2008-9 to 2019-20 period, which is very less. Over the last decades, 4 ministries, rural development, education, Ministry of Women and Child Development, they got between 85 to 90% of gender budget expenditure. So focus is also on only few schemes and few areas. So the concentration of funds in few sectors as opposed to widespread gender balanced budget. So women are not getting any priority either in entrepreneurship. That they are getting, but they are not getting to that extent which is required. Maybe in the entrepreneurship, maybe in the education, or maybe education is there, but still in politics or in any other skilling and all these things. So this is the thing. Next, the methodological inaccuracies in the gender budgeting. So the way the gender budgeting is carried on, that also plays a role. And also there is no accountability for the impact assessment of allocations for female beneficiaries. The political will is a major issue. The political will, that means the politicians does not want this, or you can say the male superiority can still be seen. Overall we can say, because the women participation is just 13% in the parliament. So with 13% of women participation, we cannot expect women to play a major role in all the things. So that is also an issue. And also creating ranking of state level gender budgeting to incentivize the states to improve the efficiency of these measures. The capital building and technical support is less. The gender auditing does not happen frequently, and that is a major issue in the flagship programs. And also there is deviation between the budgetary allocation and actual spending that needs to be addressed through proper monitoring of outcomes. So there is always this deviation. Okay. So this is about the gender budgeting, right? So these are the questions for the day. These are the 5 questions for the day. Tomorrow we will meet again and we will discuss from question number 6 to question number 10. Okay. So but before I leave, a small information. So we are, as you all know, we are providing these summaries of Vision Prelims test series, Mains test series, Vision monthly magazine and all. So do make the best use of these summaries. So ensure that you use these summaries to revise the same content multiple times. See, especially for the mains, if you want to crack this year, this will definitely help you. if you just go through these summaries once or twice before the prelims, at least once before the prelims, then after prelims, if you just revise these tests, trust me, 70% of your preparation will be done. 60 to 70%, even though if you have not made notes and all. If you have made notes, well, that is much more helpful. But still, if you can revise these things, that's more than sufficient. After that, along with this, do your own notes also. So the preparation all these things will create wholesomeness to your preparation, which you can use to your benefit. Okay, so that's it from my side. I'll see you again tomorrow with 5 more questions. Till then, keep studying and stay tuned. Jai Hind.